everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf, Hall of Famer Chris Carter. That is Nick Wright. Took us a long time to get here, but we have ourselves an NBA Finals, boys.
Took us a long time to get here, and we got to the one that nearly everyone thought we were going to get to before the season started.
Yep.
Warriors and, of course, the Cavs.
Yeah, it's excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. You have a good enjoy.
Well, let's just bang it out with that kind of it. Come on, guys.
What?
We have the finals. This is it. This is what you wanted. Let's talk about it. Game 7 out in the West last night. Warriors were the powerhouse of the NBA last few seasons, steamrolling through teams. Rockets were the powerhouse of the three-point shot, more successful than all other teams. And yet last night, Warriors trailed by 15 in the first half. And last night, Rockets couldn't hit a three. They missed 27 straight at one point. It took a monster third quarter for the Warriors to advance to the finals to face Cleveland for the 4th straight year. After the game, here's the Warriors head coach, Steve Kerr.
Houston was just outperforming us, outcompeting us, and our talent took over. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, we've got 3 of the best shot makers in the league. They all got hot at different points of the second half and made great plays. And we did a great job defensively, too, in the second half. You know, we stayed with it.
One half of basketball. 2 games. Game 6 and 7. One half of basketball. We just didn't have the same energy that we had in that first half, our pace. So it's extremely frustrating.
A calmness at halftime in the locker room because we knew how bad we were playing. Looked up, we were down 10 or whatever, 11, and knew that we had been in a situation before, obviously not in this building, but where we could really just lock back in, get some stops, and like I said, just change the momentum to our side. So I think it was just a level of experience and just maturity from our group that helped us get through to the finish line.
We all said before this game that James Harden was going to have to play outstanding, and they were going to have to play great team defense if the Rockets were going to do this without Chris Paul, who was doubtful going into this game. Neither team played outstanding ball last night. CC, was this game more about the way, though, the Warriors played or the way the Rockets played?
Well, you could take either side, and you could present either argument with plenty of facts. But I'm going to go with what Steph Curry said, the overall experience, the calm that they had at halftime, because they've been in positions like this before, and especially second quarter, what they do at halftime and how they play in the third quarter. Harden tried to boil it down to 2 games, Game 6 and Game 7, but I'll boil it down to 2 games, but it won't be Game 6 and 7. It'll be Game 1 that they lost at home. And say, well, they did win in Oakland to get home court back. But when you lose Game 1 and Game 7, I mean, how you going to be world champs? All that work you did during the regular season, and you lose twice at home. So the Rockets had the opportunity, but they faced the best team that we've seen in this generation of basketball players, the best basketball team that we've seen. And yes, they do have shooters on the Rockets, but they don't have shooters like Golden State that have done it in the pressure situations. And in the third quarter, that's what you were able to see. Golden State playing at their best, getting the type of shots that they wanted, and also the confidence knowing that we have the firepower. We're going to tighten up on the defensive end, which they started protecting the rim a lot better. And I would say that they were fortunate. They got a good whistle in Golden State in the third quarter, meaning Houston was going to the basket, and they weren't getting rewarded with either being able to finish the play or a foul call, which I believe prevented the Rockets from being consistent and continuing to pound the paint, which gave them that nice lead at halftime. But you got to credit the Golden State Warriors and their ability to stay in the moment, realize that we have the talent, utilize it, get the type of shots, and it's a make-or-miss league. And they made their shots in the third quarter.
Listen, I don't believe in ever blaming officiating for a team winning or losing, but you alluded to the whistle. There were 2 blatant fouls on James Harden, 3-pointers in the second quarter when the Rockets were trying to extend a double-digit lead that were not called. In the third quarter, it wasn't just the going to the basket. It was one of the only three-pointers the Rockets made, the potential 4-point play when Klay got his fourth foul, that they called that a non-shooting foul. That ended up being enormous. But sometimes it's a simple game. I mean, you talk to the Rockets before Game 7. What do you need to do to win? Hold the Warriors under 105. Check. Make our threes. Well, not only did they not make their threes, had they had their worst three-point shooting game in the playoffs, that's making 10 of them. That's good enough for 9 extra points. That's good enough for overtime. They went 0 for 27, as you said. You watch NBA players warm up. If they would have taken 27 half quarters, they'd have made 4 or 5 of them. Mm-hmm. I've never, in my history watching sports, I don't care if it's my son's high school team, I don't care if it's a under-talented mid-major in college basketball, certainly not the most prolific three-point shooting team in NBA history, seen a team miss 20 straight, much less 25 straight. To get to 27 straight and one of your last 30, it's just terrible basketball luck, and you're drawing dead. There's no way to overcome that. There's no way.
I don't consider that luck. Like when you have that many open looks, I can't consider it luck because shooting is a skill. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that I thought that they would have a hard time winning this series, because shooting threes in finals pressure is different than shooting wide open threes. And the pressure didn't bother the Warriors because they made tougher shots actually in the third and fourth quarter than Houston had to make. Houston has never made tough shots. And that's why I really argue with the theory, I'm going to shoot threes. Well, what's your plan B? Because everyone else has a plan B.
Well, listen, the Rockets did have 56 points in the paint last night. They were able to. Clint Capella was outstanding. Here's the reason
they should have had 70.
Okay, sure. Here's the reason why I'm saying it's bad luck. 4 for 27 is 12%, 13%. That would be terrible. 4 for 27 would have been enough. Like, 0 for 27 is impossible.
But what does luck have to do with it?
At one point, do you stop and go to the plan B? At what point do you say it's not hitting, it's not working, we need to change it up?
You have to win one game.
That's it.
And to me, that's the difference in the offensive philosophy of Golden State. Golden State, yeah, they love the threes. Nick and I talked about it this morning. Yeah, they're into the analytics, but they're not in love with them so much that they're willing to lose a game for it. Like, if Golden State was shooting the ball this way, they would have went to the bucket. Kevin Durant has a mid-range game, so they have a plan B or C to go to. Houston does not.
Well, and this is where the other part, and I think you will agree, this is just whether you want to call it luck or bad fortune. The Rockets' plan B is sitting on the bench with a pulled hamstring. The whole reason you go get Chris Paul is so when the other team is punching you in the mouth, you have a steadying force. You saw that in Game 4. When Golden State had the enormous third quarter and Chris Paul steadied them. Chris Paul is one of the greatest mid-range shooters that we've ever seen in the league, a great free throw shooter, great guy being able to finish around the basket. Like, their plan B was not out there due to injury suffered in Game 5.
Is that why the Houston Rockets lost this game? Eric Gordon said they would have won if Chris Paul was in that lineup. Do you think the Rockets win if Chris Paul's playing in that game last night?
Now, we had that same question in the Super Bowl with Malcolm Butler. Now, this was a one-possession game in the NFL. And Philadelphia, they had their way throwing the football against the Patriots. It's easy to see, yes, if you have one guy in there, could he have made one play to change the game? Yes, I can't sit here today and say if Chris Paul's there, they're definitely going to win. You know the reason why? Because when you sign Chris Paul, there's a number of things you're going to worry about. Number one thing is James Harden going to be able to be on the court with Chris Paul? Will he change his style? All right, been like, yeah. Well, Chris Paul, was he going to be healthy? Because when you sign him, that's going to be in the back of your mind. Will he be healthy? So when he ends up not being healthy for Game 6, I don't call that luck. I call that a man's history playing out in front of you.
Sure. Listen, the soft tissue injuries with Chris Paul, you know that's a looming anvil. It's why the Rockets or whomever wants to sign him this offseason, if he wants the full max contract, 4 years from someone else, 5 years from Houston, you got to weigh that. And here's why I can't simply say, yes, the Rockets win with Chris Paul. Yes, he makes the difference. In Game 6 or Game 7. I think the Warriors probably come out a little more focused in Game 6 or Game 7. If with Chris Paul out there. Like, I've watched the Warriors.
I don't think them being down, you had their attention. There ain't no amount of focus. There's no player over there. When you're down and can be eliminated, there is nothing else that would heighten your senses.
Well, I just can't. There's no way for me. I'm trying to think of a rationale as to why in the first quarter of both of those games they were so reckless with the ball, so careless with the ball, and so maybe they're a little more buttoned up if CP3's out there. Maybe not. But do the Rockets win if Chris Paul's out there? I can't definitively say that. What I can say is, do they have a much better chance? Is he the most important player, even though he's not their best player? The most important player on their team? Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I don't know
if
it was
Chris Paul's out there, let me tell you who's not out there. Ryan Anderson. All right? He don't take off his warm-up.
Yeah.
And those minutes that he played, Golden State took advantage of those minutes. Joe Johnson played 5 minutes, but he wasn't bad. He was a wash, basically,
he was
in
fine.
the stat column, and they didn't isolate him defensively. So if Chris Paul is out there, I do know that.
I don't know if it was Mike D'Antoni or who said it after the game. They weren't saying that Chris Paul's contribution would have been more threes or more points. It was to calm the Rockets down in the third quarter. We needed someone out there to calm these guys down, and maybe the pressure did get to them, as you said.
Listen, that was his job this year, and we saw him do it through the first 5 games of the series. It's just a brutal injury at the timing that it was suffered.
All right, so it is the Warriors and it is the Cavs in the NBA Finals yet again. We will talk about this a lot more coming up, but on the other side, are LeBron's teammates actually underrated? I haven't said that in a while. That's next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
We're going to get to the Cavs and Warriors, but first, James Harden, watch this. 2 defenders behind the back to Clint Capella. That's a nice pass.
This was great. I mean, this was one of the many moments in the first half where you really thought the Rockets were going to win this game.
Yeah, they were attacking the rim. I mean, they were getting so many good shots. I mean, inside the paint the first and second quarter.
All right, then Ryan Anderson guarding Steph Curry. What happens next is relatively expected.
This was a heartbreaking sequence because the previous play, Trevor Ariza had a shot go in and out, an open corner 3. So that was 3 off the board for Houston. And then Steph has a shot go in, out, and back in. Man, what, see?
I'm just still on your luck. Golden State had all the luck.
I didn't say luck. I said that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I know you went from luck to heartbreaking. I like it.
Watch Eric Gordon showing off the handles here before dishing it to Capella for that very easy dunk.
Again, the second quarter, this is what they were doing. Getting into the lane, dishing to Capella. How many points Capella have the second half? Not as many. I don't think we'll be seeing too many highlights of that.
Yeah, not
Eric
too
Gordon,
many.
I thought, played an impressive game.
Not many Rockets highlights at all going to the other basket. Any of these first highlights, they're going to be going to that basket, and then the Warriors are going to be going to that basket.
True. Hey, you know who else watched last night's Game 7 besides the 3 of us? LeBron James. Actually, I don't know, but there wasn't much on last night, so that's probably what he watched. I checked. LeBron and the Cavs will now face the Warriors in the finals yet again, 4th straight year. But Vegas has them as massive underdogs in this series, mainly because of his supporting cast, or the lack thereof. But Steph Curry says we might be overstating how much LeBron is carrying this team. Take a listen.
I hate when people say that. Like, they're NBA players, and yeah, they're new and whatnot. And Bron is amazing. He played an unbelievable playoff run to date, and has willed his team to his 8 straight finals and all that, which is it's unbelievable. To think about the consistency and longevity and this level of greatness that he's shown, but don't disrespect the other guys out there. They fought hard too.
So Nick, are we being a little too harsh on LeBron's supporting cast? Should we ease up a little bit on the guys around him?
No.
Okay.
Listen, if Steph's point is that every single guy in the NBA would bust your head at the park, well taken.
Of course.
The 450 best basketball players alive, 435 of them are in the NBA. There's a couple in Europe and a few that just never got their lives right, and they're out on a blacktop somewhere. But yes, I understand that compared to the mortal American, yes, these are the best players in the world. But you can't compare them to regular people. You have to compare them to each other, to the other people in the NBA. And I mean, I can boil it down to as simple as this. Of the final 4 teams, there were 11 guys averaging at least 15 points in these playoffs. Every team has 3 of them. One team has 4 of them, except for the Cavs, who just have LeBron. The only guy even averaging 15 points. Like, the whole reason C is nearly as big of a LeBron guy as I am. And the whole reason C has said this is a bad team, that you've doubted them, it's not because of anti-LeBron stuff. It's because you don't trust his teammates to perform consistently at all. And that's been well-founded skepticism. So, no, I don't think we're being too hard on LeBron's teammates.
Hey, Steph, pick up your phone. You can. We're going to do a fantasy. You can have any of them except LeBron.
They're all NBA players.
Which one you want? Mm-hmm. Which one you want? And let me know how he improves your team. I got one guy. I got one guy that they'll take, and it'll improve their team. And they probably wouldn't even take him. They can have Kevin Love, and Kevin Love becomes David West.
Okay. I was going to say, I was wondering, and David West is out of the rotation.
There you go.
Right.
Okay, so they can have any of the Cavs, all 4 of their starters outside of LeBron, and they can't even get into the rotation. That's how bad the supporting cast for LeBron is. JR, how bad has he been?
The worst.
Oh, let's say he's going against Klay Thompson. You talking about, let's go tell of the tape? JR shooting not the last week's games. No, not game 6 and 7. For the playoff series. How many? 18 games? 38%. So I'm sure that JR, like, they're terrified of JR. George Hill, oh, yeah, his days in Sacramento. Oh, yeah, he scares them an awful lot. Tristan, he's the only one with LeBron shooting above 50%. He's playing well, but no, Steph, let's not. Now, I understand as a pro, yes, they're pros. You're going to respect them. But I guarantee you, no one from the front office, Draymond's not calling the way they called KD when they lost to LeBron before.
I mean, that's the thing is, you look at the 4 teams that were left as of 48 hours ago, so we can expand it past just these other 2 teams. Forget just the Warriors, one of the most talented teams ever. What Cavs players are breaking into the rotation for Boston? Like George Hill as the backup point guard for Boston? Sure.
Yeah, because the backup point guard was hurt.
It was injured because they didn't have one. Who are you taking? Would Kevin Love have been the 7th man for Houston? Sure. But there's not a player on the Cavs other than LeBron that would start on any of these teams.
Jeff Green could probably get Jordan Bell's minutes because Jordan Bell is a young player and everything. He does provide a lot of energy and everything for him. But that's about it. So you're hard-pressed to even try to create a scenario where you would look at the Cavs players and be like, you know something? I really like what I see. And it starts with Kevin Love. It starts with Kevin Love. When you see
But it's not even like Kevin Love has been like the guaranteed number 2 this entire postseason.
Kevin Love has been horrible.
Okay.
All right? Okay. No, that's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. There's no need to sugarcoat it. He's supposed to be an all-star. LeBron is the only player playing without all-star players. So I don't care what Steph Curry says.
And when you mention JR's shooting percentage, people might say, he's shooting a lot of threes. Okay, Kevin Love. Kevin Love shooting 38%. He's 6'10". I understand he takes a lot of threes, but they were running a lot of post-ups for him, trying to get him to jump hooks. People might say, now one guy we haven't mentioned his name. People say Kyle Korver. Korver's a guy here's the thing with Korver, who I have tremendous respect for and can't believe he's still playing in year 15. Man, Korver might go 4 for 6, give you 16 points and change the game. Mm-hmm. He also might do what he did in Game 7, which is make one shot, be a defensive liability, and be borderline unplayable to where you have to stick with JR. There is no level of consistency from these guys.
The Cavs have so much talent. Their second best player, Kevin Love, we were helped by his injury. Oh, how would you be helped by that? With Jeff Green being as athletic as he was, they didn't have the mismatches they had in the previous period. They had targeted Kevin Love in the Celtics. The Cavs, I can't guarantee. We talking about Chris Paul, would he have been there? I can't guarantee if Kevin Love is there for Game 7, the Cavs have a better shot of winning compared to what Jeff Green did. I don't know if Kevin Love can duplicate how he did that.
So how does LeBron James talk about how incredible an accomplishment this without throwing his guys under the bus? Because the only reason this is an incredible accomplishment is because he single-handedly got them here.
No, because it's a team sport, and LeBron has done this. He's managed this. There's no one that's been better at being a superstar than LeBron. It don't pay to tell the truth. He knows what he's working with. LeBron knows what he's up against.
And he has to build up their confidence, even if it's not working. Like, it does not help him to say, while our friend Steven Jackson joked about, and he was correct, LeBron's been very self-congratulatory. It's never been at the expense of his teammates. He's never all year long taken shots at them.
Yeah.
He's been very good about that. But this is one of the benefits to the Cavs role players all being replacement level. Is they're the one team that can suffer an injury, and it doesn't really change the math for you. Like, Kevin Love's their second best player. He's out Game 6, out Game 7. You're like, well, it doesn't really change my projection.
No, they got better.
Right? Because if everyone is playing at replacement level, when they get replaced, you don't drop off that much. The Warriors lose their fifth best guy, Iguodala. You're like, oh, that's a big loss. The Rockets lose their second best guy. They can't recover from it.
You have to factor stuff in.
It's
All right, we got to take a break. We'll talk about James Harden on the other side. This is First Things First. All right, let's talk some football. Because we can. Coming off a disappointing 2017, Russell Wilson has high hopes for the Seahawks in 2018. The Seahawks quarterback says, quote, I think we're going to have a great offense. I really do. Chris Carr, do you think the Seahawks have a bounce-back season this year?
Well, their offensive line, I don't believe, will be worse than last year, one of the worst that you've ever seen in professional football, and definitely one of the worst you've seen with a quality franchise quarterback like Russell Wilson. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to run the ball. They haven't had a running game since Marshawn Lynch. Offensive line is a hodgepodge of guys. They spend the least amount of resources on their offensive line. So I need to see that change first.
Keep in mind what they will have this year at the offensive line that they didn't have for the full year last year is Dwayne Brown at left tackle.
Yeah, don't know how good he is. I know you got a lot of faith in him, but I don't know how good he is at this stage of his career.
Okay, so that was a mid-season pickup from them in a trade from Houston. Listen, I think any team with Russell Wilson at quarterback has the capability to be a good offense and a good team because I think Russell Wilson is that good. The pieces around him need to step up.
Let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott had an up-and-down year, missing 6 games due to suspension last season. His quarterback, Dak Prescott, said that the emotional roller coaster Zeke went through definitely took a toll on the young running back. CC, you expect Elliott to have a big 2018 season without all the distractions?
I'm looking forward to it, yes. And talking to Zeke's dad, I know that Zeke also had some injuries and everything in his first year in the league that he couldn't do the type of weight training. He's a workout warrior. He is looking forward to having these things behind him and to be able to move on. But you can't really think about the amount of pressure that Zeke was under with the investigation, the potential being of suspended, and all along, Zeke said he was innocent. So it's hard to try to fight for your name and reputation and everything. So yes, I look for him. It's got to be a big burden off his shoulders.
And listen, Zeke is one of, just from a raw talent and ability standpoint, one of the very best players, not just running backs, best players in the entire league. He doesn't have the transition this year of going from college to pro, doesn't have the controversy they had from year 1 to year 2. This is, to use a phrase I think you like, the cleanest offseason that he's had going into his pro career. And I think he will be able to excel because of it.
All right, to the NBA now. The Celtics have a lot of decisions to make in the offseason. Most immediately is Marcus Smart, who's a restricted free agent in 2018. But don't expect him to take a pay cut. Smart says, quote, hey, I'm worth more than $12 to $14 million. Nick, you're a basketball guru now. Should the Celtics bring back Marcus Smart?
I don't know about at that price. Listen, I think a lot of these NBA guys are going to realize that the salary cap, it skyrocketed.
Yes.
And then it leveled. And there'll be some benefit from these conference finals going 7 games that you didn't have last year when they had sweeps in both conference, or sweeps in a 5-game series in the conference finals. But you have to have a very specific system for Marcus Smart to be worth more than $8 or $9 million in today's NBA economy. I don't blame him for saying he wants it. I don't know that he's going to get it.
And you have to realize, I mean, he's a bench player. I mean, he's deep on the bench now. When you have Gordon and Kyrie come back, he's deep coming off that bench. So I think they can get better value. And also, you got to look to the future. Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and those guys, they're young now, but that could be money used for other valuable assets moving on.
It's a great point. With those guys coming back, is he your 8th man? Is he your 9th man? You can't pay your 8th or 9th man $12 to $14 million. You can't.
All right, let's get back to our top story now. Last night's Game 7 between the Warriors and the Rockets. The Rockets fell one game short of making their first finals in over 20 years. Two problems for them in this loss. One, no Chris Paul, and man, oh man, did they need him. And two, they forgot how to hit a three-point shot. Literally couldn't hit a shot. Missed 27 threes in a row. Went 7 for 44 for the game. Here's James Harden on the team's struggles.
Just in that second half, our pace wasn't there. That third quarter, I was trying to get the guy, come on, let's go. It's time, but we just didn't have that extra juice that we needed. I don't know if it was the big minutes. I don't know what it was.
Well, hats off to them, but I think we're very close, obviously. And, some things we'll tweak, and we'll get back on the horse, and we'll get these guys here pretty soon.
So you see, this was the team that basically lost this game because of their whole mantra, which was shooting threes. I mean, it's basically what got them here. What was the Rockets season a success given the way they lost? Would you still consider it a success?
I can't consider it a success. I know the coach during the regular season, he said with the 65 wins that he thought the season was a success before the playoffs had played out. You have home court advantage. You have the Warriors in a Game 7. Nick said based on what the franchise, that's what they wanted. They like to take their chances. No, you can't consider this a success because you are 12 minutes, and I'll take that, the 12 minutes of the third quarter. You're 12 minutes away from being in the NBA Finals, and you can't make the adjustments. Like the system that you have, it didn't prove out that it works. So I wasn't encouraged by watching that. People will say, use the excuse of Chris Paul. Well, you don't know what's going to happen next year. You think Harden's going to be just as good? Are you going to continue to play him 40 minutes? Can his body handle that? Is he in the type of physical conditioning to do that? So I would say that this year was not a success because my friend taught me that I didn't know this. Only 20 teams have won 65 games. 15 of those won the NBA championship. Now you know the Rockets what list they're on? They're on one of the teams that won 65 games that didn't win the championship.
This season was obviously not the ultimate success. But I know what, Cece alluded to it, I know what their goal was. Secure home court, turn the season into a best of 3 against Golden State. They secured that. They then went one above that. They won the first game of that best of 3. And at the end of that game, they lost their most important player. And despite that, they had a double-digit halftime lead in Game 6, and then a double-digit halftime lead in Game 7. I can't look at one incredible 2.5-quarter cold stretch of three-point shooting and say it's an indictment on an entire system of basketball. You could never have duplicated or believed that a team would miss 27 threes in a row. They overcame an injury to their version of Andre Iguodala, the guy that can't shoot that well but is a great defender, Luc Richard Mbah a Moute. He got injured in Game 81 or Game 82, was out in the first round, and then became unplayable. Like, we've seen what the Iggy injury has done to a more talented Golden State team. And the one other reason that I can't say this year was a failure, or that I can say this year was a success, let me put it like that, is we don't know. What if in 3 years no one has taken Golden State to 7 games again? What if the only elimination games Golden State plays with this group of guys are these 2 games that the Rockets played them shorthanded? Are we still going to have that be an indictment? It was. You don't like the word unlucky, so I'll use the word unfortunate. It was an unfortunate time to have the most historically cold shooting stretch, not in Rockets history, in NBA playoff history. That's what happened. I don't think it undoes everything they did this year.
Well, if you consider this season a success, do you not change anything going into next year? Do they have all the tools in place, I'll ask either of you, to come back next year and take it further than they did this year? Or are they missing something?
I mean, I wouldn't. For one, they got to make a decision with Chris Paul, and that's going to affect the rest of the roster. Are they going to commit to him? If Houston, if you're smart, you go after LeBron James. Why not? He's the best free agent out there. If you're trying to improve, Golden State did it. They went out and got KD after they lost to the Cavs. Like, why wouldn't you as Houston go out and get the best player? He's better than Chris Paul. He's better than Harden. He can calm the team down, and he can get a bucket or go to the free throw line. He realized how these playoff games, and I don't care what analytics they give to LeBron, LeBron knows in the third and fourth quarter in the NBA, all those stats and stuff, they don't matter. He don't need the referee. So go get LeBron James. That's what I would do.
Listen, if you can get LeBron, you go get LeBron. If you can't get LeBron, would I run it back? Yes. Now, you mentioned a decision about Chris Paul. They also got a decision about Clint Capella. If they lock up Chris Paul and they re-sign Clint Capella, that's your team. You're going to have Harden on a max, Chris Paul on a max, Clint Capella on something close to a max. You're still, unfortunately, paying Ryan Anderson $19 million for the next couple of years unless you get someone to take him. That's going to be your team. But that team that team healthy, I believe, would have been good enough. And you're not guaranteed health, and that's the other concern about bringing back Chris Paul, is the idea that he's going to be healthier in year
I don't
14.
think it's a reality. Chris Paul's, what, 32?
33, 32, okay. Sure.
Now, so if you sign Chris Paul to a 4-year, you're taking him from 33 to 37. Now, I've seen Chris Paul from the age of 29 to 33. So you think on the backside of those 4 years, he's going to be more healthy than the last 4 years? No. So you got to bake that in there.
Right.
So if he misses the game in the playoffs, you can't be sitting around talking about I'm unlucky and all those types of things, because that is part of who Chris Paul is.
Let's talk about James Harden for a second. A lot of what was going on in the postseason was whether it was going to taint his reputation anyway if he didn't lose, and what it would do to his reputation, or rather if he lost, and what it would do to reputation if he won. So the way they lost, but taking to the Warriors to 7 games, how do you factor that into his legacy?
Listen, I won't do this to him. I won't do to him what we did to LeBron, what we did to Durant. One of the reasons I believe Durant left Oklahoma City and went to Golden State was because we boiled too many great athletes down to, you got a ring, count the rings. How many rings you got? This guy's a great player. He is a great player. Is he a pantheon player? Is he a top of the pyramid player? Probably not. And had he won last night and taken his team to a championship, he could have become that. So if that's tainting his legacy, I'll say that. But what the onus on him once CP3 went down was enormous. Was he elite in Game 6 and 7? No. But what's the list of guys we have active in the league right now that have been the best player on champions? You count them on less than one hand. You count them on less than one hand. Like the idea that everyone that isn't that is something less than, I reject. It's one of the reasons why I don't kill Russ. I'm not going to kill Anthony Davis. He's a great player who isn't LeBron. And is he KD? I don't know. Like, how would these teams have looked if those two guys were flip-flopped? I'm not sure. Like, he looks a lot like KD looked in these spots when KD wasn't on the Warriors. And I thought KD was a great player then and a great player now.
I would challenge you to find the numbers, because Harden in 17 games in the playoffs, not Game 7, 17 games in the, he didn't play great this playoffs. This is the best supporting cast that he had, best chance he had to win a championships. And to me, James Harden didn't come through. He didn't look like a superstar. You guys asked the question, how is his legacy affected? I'm just a person. I don't know what does Harden have as a legacy. What's his legacy?
You were going to say that he doesn't have a legacy to be affected.
What has he done that we're going to give him a legacy? Okay, if he was to get hit by a bus, couldn't play any more basketball, what would we say about him?
A league MVP, man. Every guy that's ever won a league MVP is a Hall of Famer, except for Derrick Rose, probably. Like, once you're a league MVP, and once you're two-time runner-up and one-time league MVP, I think you have a basketball legacy.
So that's his legacy in the NBA, that he was a good offensive player.
One of the greatest isolation players the league's ever seen. Absolutely. Probably one of the 6 best shooting guards ever in the history of the league.
So he didn't enhance that. If that's what it is, like if he's one of the best shooting guards, he didn't enhance that in the playoffs.
Okay.
So whatever his legacy is, whatever y'all want to call him, he didn't enhance that. Did he, as my man Coach Mangini says, was he a force multiplier? No. Did he help his teammates at the end of the game get better? No. Did he create shots for other people? No.
Well, listen. He led the team in assists. He gave you 29, 5, and 7 in the series. Not in the series, in the playoffs. Pardon me. In the series, it was right around that as well. Here's my question, I guess. When we look at this, if you flip, we think Steph is all those things. From game 1 of this season, if you flip Steph and Harden, are the Rockets this good? No. Steph missed 20 games. Steph is, if you flip Steph and Durant, are the Rockets this good? I don't believe so.
The only thing, the difference between the two that you're making the comparison, Steph does have a legacy because he's got hardware. KD does have a legacy, all right? Because he's got hardware.
Did you think KD had a legacy before last year? Because I did.
I thought it was up in the air what his legacy was going to be. I thought he was going to be one of the best NBA players that we've seen in the last 25 years. What the legacy was going to say, I knew Kevin Durant, I knew he was a special player, a lot better than James Harden.
So I guess... So here's my problem with that, and this is what my problem in general with the just counting the rings stuff. And I know I'm a man on an island here. Like much more people agree with you than agree with me on that, and I'm okay with that. Do I think the Warriors would have won the title last year if free agency were different, the years were different, and Harden had signed with them in the offseason, and Durant was in OKC? Absolutely, they'd have won the title. If those two players were flipped, and this was OKC, Golden State, but Harden's on Harden's on Golden State, pardon me, are we sitting here saying, Kevin Durant can't do it again?
No, but we're paid to talk about what's really happening, not no fantasy. He's on Houston. Mm-hmm. Did he take Houston with home court advantage over the top? No. He shot 41% in 17 games. All right. Did he play well in this playoffs? No, he didn't play great. Well, you thought he played great.
Well, there's a difference between not playing well and playing great. I would ask you this. Who in these playoffs other than LeBron has played better than James Harden? Because it can't just be...
Kevin Durant.
Really? So Durant's averaging the same number of points.
Less shots.
He's shooting a better percentage from the field, fewer assists, about the same rebounds. Like with a much easier job, with much more help. Like that. What?
Listen, man, you sign up for what you sign up for.
Agreed.
All right? James Harden was a free agent. He had the pick of the litter. All right? Just like KD. And just because my decision's better than yours, you can't hold that against me.
Of course, but I just don't think when you're saying we're paid to talk about reality.
James Harden had his team with home court advantage everything was relying on him in H-Town. Let's forget the other 16 games. Last night, Harden didn't get it done.
Okay,
to my standard.
That one, last night, I will agree with you. Last night, he was not good enough. That I totally agree with you there.
James Harden missed 59 threes in the Western Conference Finals, the most of players
he just shot another one. He just missed another one.
In NBA history. It's a big factor.
Well, yeah, but it should be noted that the first, second, and third on that list prior to Harden was Steph. And everyone knows how great Steph is. Like, guys that shoot a lot of threes are going to miss a lot of threes. I mean, so I think that's an important note on that stuff.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, are the 49ers Super Bowl contenders? They seem to think so. San Francisco to the Super Bowl. Next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Former head coach Eric Mangini is here.
What up, Coach? Good to see you.
Good morning.
You enjoy your Memorial Day in New York City?
I did.
Good.
Fired up. Cavs.
Yeah. Beautiful
Excited
day
about the
yesterday.
Finals.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Almost as fired up as you guys were at the start of the show.
Oh, yeah.
I tried.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to rush coffee out here.
I tried.
It was the calm before the storm, Coach.
Coach, you seem like the kind
Late
of guy that gets excited about NFL buzz, which is great because we've got some NFL buzz for you.
Yeah.
People tell you that all the time, right? Lots of buzz surrounding the San Francisco 49ers coming into this season. They traded for Jimmy G. They won 5 straight to end the season. And, well, I mentioned the Jimmy G part, so there's that. According to new running back Jerick McKinnon, their bar is much higher than 5 games. He said, quote, the whole team is talking about the Super Bowl. Coach, are Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers legit Super Bowl contenders this season?
I think the first thing they have to do is stop talking about the Super Bowl, and all they need to talk about is OTAs. They need to focus on this moment, and then move on to training camp, and then move on to the first game. One of the biggest things that you can get caught up in is either focusing on the past, what happened, or focusing on the future. You can't control the past, all right? There's nothing you can do about that, and you're not Nostradamus. You can't predict it. So just focus on the moment that you're in right now. And look, Jimmy Garoppolo did a lot of good things last year. But Matt Flynn did a lot of good things in Green Bay. You know, well, he was 5-0 before he went to Seattle, and then he never played, significantly again after that. So let's see where they go. And the worst thing they can do is start predicting and projecting and talking. Forget about that stuff. There's a lot of good teams they got to get past.
And listen, if they are going to be a Super Bowl contender, like that's going to fall heavily on Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulders. Why do I say that? More than other teams. Because Niners spent a lot of high draft picks on their offensive line. They got 3 first-rounders there. On their defensive line, every D lineman's a first-rounder. A couple other players on their defense are first-rounder. You know where they have no first-round picks? Skill position guys. You know where they have no guys that you're like, oh, my God, that is a force multiplier. Wide receiver, tight end, the guy talking here, running back Jerick McKinnon, who's, I think, a good player, but I wouldn't consider him in the top tier, even secondary tier of NFL running backs as far as what they've done thus far in their career. So he's going to have to be, for their offense to be good enough, maybe it doesn't have to be great. Maybe those defense are going to gel and come together. For the offense to be good enough, he's going to have to be the term we've stolen from you, the force multiplier. He's going to have to make Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin and Jerick McKinnon better than we've seen them up to this point in their NFL careers.
I challenge football fans outside of Coach Mangini, because he's got a little history there with the 49ers. Name me 10 starters for the 49ers. Because we got them in the question bar, Super Bowl contender. Well, what other Super Bowl contender that we don't know 10 starters playing for him? So, number one, get them off the Super Bowl contender list, right? Because ain't no way that a team can be a Super Bowl contender and I don't know 10 guys on their team. Okay, so let's just stop all that off-season issue, giving out these Lombardi trophies. Jerick McKinnon, I would have asked him this question when he said that. I got everyone around here talking about the Super Bowl. Is this team better than that Vikings team you was just on? Because I disagree with you if you think so. And I know the Vikings, they came up 1 game short of the Super Bowl. And last year at this time, they weren't talking about that. So Super Bowl teams are not made in the OTAs by your conversation. They're made by the teams that are deciding this week we're going to try to get better at a certain aspect of the game. They have a serious question marks as far as their defense and their secondary. They got serious question marks as far as their playmakers. So there's a lot of work that they need to do. Like, Jimmy G has not been there 4 or 5 years, so let's not make a goal for the 49ers, something that's really, it's not obtainable. It's not a realistic goal to have this type of franchise that's still in transition. Let's not forget where they were before Jimmy Garoppolo took over as the starter, Coach.
And when you look at it, too, with Jimmy Garoppolo's numbers, he had 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and that's a concern to me. I'd like to see that number be a lot different and a lot more skewed towards the touchdowns. And the whole idea of building expectations at this point, that's a bad thing. We saw it last year with the Giants. You want to go into the season and have some time to gel as a defense, have some time to gel as an offense. Don't go in where you lose 1 or 2 games and suddenly everybody's saying, well, you guys are supposed to be Super Bowl contenders. What's going on? Then that puts internal pressure on the team to perform that they just don't need right now.
Well, the bar is high for Jimmy Garoppolo because of the way the season ended last year, fair or otherwise. What are reasonable expectations then for this 49ers team?
Look, I think that if they were able to make the playoffs this year, that would be great. That would be a fantastic jump from where they were last year. And they finished strong, which is good. But any team that consistently wins doesn't worry about how they finish because you don't get to carry those wins into the next season. You don't get to carry that momentum into the next season. You've got to start over, and you've got to do all those things that you did well last year a little bit better because people aren't going into the games now thinking, oh, we got the 49ers, where they maybe exhale and don't put forward their best foot. Now they're saying, okay, they've got Jimmy G. They're Super Bowl contenders. We got to fire up for these guys. And they're going to be able to have to match that intensity early.
And, Coach, you bring up the fact that in that stretch, Garoppolo only had 7 touchdowns to 5 picks. I think people would say, yeah, but they went 5-0 once he started starting games. Okay. So that you got to temper a little bit as well, because if it's not the overwhelming statistical production, it's about, oh, you won the games. Okay, so you beat Chicago. You beat Houston, who had the worst quarterback situation arguably in football once Deshaun Watson went down. Tennessee and Jacksonville, which were nice wins. And then at the end of the year, the Rams team, which was resting everyone. So the statistical profile isn't extraordinary. The wins are a little misleading. I get it, though. They were 1-10, and then you win 5 straight to finish the year. You should be optimistic. But in your division, you have a Rams team that was really good last year that is going for it right now, right? You've got...
They feel like they're Super Bowl contenders.
Absolutely. You have a Seattle team that every year feels like they're Super Bowl contenders, and at least prior to last year had the track record of being in the playoffs, I believe, 6 straight seasons. Like, it's not the easiest division, and you don't have a lot of veteran talent that's been there to say, this is the steps we need to take.
Yeah, realistic goals are to get into the playoff. Realistic goals are to go against the Rams and the Seahawks and try to get a split of those games. Realistic goals are to build sweep Arizona so you can have a winning record in your division. So that right there, those are things. Establish a home field advantage the way the 49ers used to. There's so many other building blocks that Lynch and Shanahan, that they have to, before you are a Super Bowl. There is no team last year that was 1-10 that we are considering them Super Bowl contenders.
I agree.
Good, Coach. Thank you so much for
Drop the
waiting
mic,
for
get
it.
out of here.
And that
See you
is
tomorrow.
that.
We were just looking for the sign-off.
We'll see you a little bit later on the show, Coach. Coming up, back to basketball with the Rockets have won last night as CP3 had played. Next on First Things First. Back here in First Things First, the Western Conference Finals is in the books, but let's not forget the dramatic shimmying that took place throughout this 7-game series. First, there was Steph Curry, in Game 4. Then, not to be outdone, Chris Paul, stung Steph with the shimmy in Game 5. What? Then the man who practically invented the shimmy. Oh, yeah. Look at Antoine Walker go.
That's one of my favorites there.
I used to get criticized for that, Chris.
No,
Criticized. No shot. Lucky
I was
us.
a season ticket holder. I was shimmying right with you,
No,
bro.
I didn't, man. But I used to get criticized for that.
It's a new NBA,
And now
man.
they can do it now.
Oh, yeah.
Feel free to do
Now.
it.
Well, depending on who does it. They like Steph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steph,
I like CP, though. I like the way CP did it. That
Oh,
was
yeah, he
nice.
threw it back at him.
Yeah, that was nice.
Antoine Walker, Mr. Shimmy himself.
you
joins
should
us
get
now.
shimmy royalties,
I
because you
should.
did invent it.
I did invent
Just
it.
like Sam Cassell invented a dance that the NBA has since banned, the big bleep dance. You invented the shimmy. They didn't ban the shimmy. Steph took it from you, and now this
And
whole
then Chris
generation of
took it
young
from
people,
Steph.
that whole generation of young people think Steph invented the shimmy. That ain't
That
right.
made me feel good. You know, I ain't a Hall of Famer, so I got to have something to I gotta have something to keep my mind on.
Perfect.
We'll clip that for you and send it to you. You can take it with you.
All right, Antoine, let's talk about Game 7. The big story here, the Rockets couldn't hit a 3. They missed 27 straight. Took a monster third quarter for the Warriors to pull this one out. So Golden State now advancing to the finals to face Cleveland for the 4th straight year. Break it down for us, Antoine Walker. How were the Warriors able to come back and beat the Rockets in Game 7 last night?
Unfortunately, you know, without Chris Paul, it was going to be a tough task for Houston. I know a lot of people want to downplay that situation, but if you look at Game 4 and 5 and how Chris Paul really willed them to win with his offensive plays, his leadership on the court, making sure they got timely buckets when they needed, when James Harden didn't have it going, they really missed him in obviously Game 6 and 7, especially building big first half leads like they did. I think in 4 and 5 they were able to withstand those runs of Golden State, especially in the third quarter, because of Chris Paul's ability to take some of that pressure off Harden, and he allowed Eric Gordon to get going. He gets the ball to the right people, and they really missed him. And then obviously the three-point shooting, you can't go 0 for 27 and think you're going to beat the NBA champs.
I mean, honestly.
It's just not going to happen. And I blame James Harden for that. I mean, this is a guy that, you know, we're trying to see if he can get to the next level. And you got to look at during the season, he shoots 10 threes a game. He does that. But he also gets to the free throw line 10 times a game. And he did not do a good enough job of getting to the free throw line. He pounds the basketball so much and puts himself in bad shooting positions that he actually hurts himself more than hurts the team, because he can't get going when you pound it for 20 seconds and then have to force a bad three.
Well, here's the thing about the free throw line. And this is something that I don't know if the NBA addresses, I don't know if Harden addresses. But here's where Harden's in a bad spot. The NBA changes the way the game is called in the regular season to the playoffs. It's just acknowledged that that's going to happen.
Same thing happens in the NFL.
Okay, sure.
They allow more physical contact.
Allow more physical great. It's a great example. Harden's, one of the reasons he is the MVP and the player that he's been is he's better by every metric than any player in the league by a wide margin at getting to the line. And when I don't think his game changed that much. It's just not as successful when the referees are. In Game 6, he drove to the basket 21 times, generating 0 free throws. That didn't happen all year long. So, like, Harden, more than any player, I believe, in the league, more than any superstar, is affected by the difference in the way the game is called, because Harden, more than any superstar, relies on the whistle more than any other superstar.
Well, then you have to adjust. It's not as if the playoffs this year, 2018, we're going to just change the rules in the playoffs. Like, if you're that good, the other players are adjusting. Steph's not getting to the free throw line as much as during the regular season. KD's not getting to the free throw line. We know Klay is not going to the free throw line. So LeBron's not getting to the free throw line as much as he does during the regular season. So Harden it's his game. You need to adjust to the referees. Your coaches tell you adjust to the referees. And adjustment has nothing to do with that missing. They had no plan B. That's my biggest problem with the Rockets. When they were on the 0 for 27, where's your plan B?
Well, I think for James Harden, where the adjustment got to come, he has no in-between game. He got to look himself in the mirror. And every star player gets better. If you look at LeBron James in his 15th year, his offensive package is way better than it's ever been in his career. That's why we're so amazed. We're not used to seeing LeBron shooting fadeaways, making mid-range jump shots. That hasn't been his game throughout his career. James Harden has no in-between game. He can't pull up from 15 and make a 15-footer. It's either get to the basket or shoot a 3. You can't be a superstar in this league, and when you know the rules are going to change come playoff time, and you can't get to the foul line, you got to be able to make a 15-footer.
Yeah, not only does he have to be able to do that, his overall conditioning. In this era where we've seen LeBron James play 82 games, you got to tighten up his body to be able to go. He's talking about extended minutes, 40 minutes. That's not no extended time. If you are a superstar, that's no extended time in the NBA. So that would be one thing. The last thing that I would want him to improve on, besides the intermediate, his overall conditioning, he got no right hand. Look how many times at the hole he can finish with his right hand. Last night, they forced him to his right. He tried to shoot the ball with his right hand, but he is not a guy that can finish at the hole with his left or his right hand. So if you take his left hand away from him at the rim, he has problems finishing.
Antoine, it sounds like you place more blame on the Rockets for losing this game than sort of glorify the Warriors for winning it. Did they win the game, or did the Rockets lose this game?
No, obviously Golden State came and took the game in the second half. You got to give them credit. You got 2 MVPs that took over that third quarter and separated themselves. They knew that their back was against the wall. They were down 11 points, and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant came out very aggressive and really took the game over. You got to give, and Klay Thompson picked up his 4th foul.
They did it without Klay.
They did it without him, so they took over the game. So you can't take anything away from that. And if you're an MVP in this league and you're a superstar, NBA Finals MVP, you're supposed to take over these games, and they did that. And they just beat a team that's, unfortunately, without Chris Paul, they was not the same team. It was going to be hard for them to win.
I think sometimes in sports commentary, we do a bad job of conflating an excuse and an explanation. I don't think talking about CP3's injury is an excuse. I think it's an explanation. Now, it might have been predictable. It might have been something the Rockets needed to have more of a contingency plan throughout the year, because it's not like he's LeBron, who's never been hurt. It's not like you could have never possibly seen Chris Paul missing some playoff games coming. I understand that part of it.
We saw the Cavs overcome a more valuable player in Kevin Love.
Oh, I totally disagree he's a more valuable player.
Okay, just wait. The Cavs don't have nobody. At least the Rockets do have some players.
Yeah, hold on, though. But the Rocket, hold on, because I don't think that's something that can.
We were looking for anybody to score 15 points for the Cavs.
Right, but
they lost the only guy they could depend on to get 15.
But they couldn't even, the way Kevin Love was playing, they couldn't depend on him to get 15. He was averaging 13.5 points on 38% shooting. If Kevin Love had been playing 20 and 10 beginning of the season, All-Star Kevin Love, and then they lose him, that's one thing. Chris Paul had been the Rockets' most consistent performer in this playoff run, and they lost him.
Did LeBron adjust? Okay, Harden didn't adjust.
Harden's not LeBron. Like, that's one thing. We did this to Durant, and I don't think it's fair. I wasn't on TV when people were doing it to Durant. I'm on TV now. I'm not going to do it to Harden. We can't hold guys to the LeBron standard. We can hold guys to the KD, Steph, Harden, Russ standard.
I'm not holding to LeBron standard. I was holding to a one-game standard. That's not the LeBron's. One game. One game, James Harden. You're supposed to be the MVP of the 500 best players. Show me. That was my lead going into yesterday's game. I need James Harden You're already at halftime with 11-point lead. I already given you the first half. You had 11-point lead. There's 3 MVPs on the court. 2 of them came out for the second half, and 1 of them didn't. And that was Steph and KD. And Harden was nowhere to be found. So it's not a LeBron standard. It's only 12 minutes of basketball I'm asking him for to play at the best player in the league level, and he didn't.
I think it goes back to what you talk about conditioning. If you look at last year, he got tired last year because of his style of play. And now without Chris Paul, another guy he can get a ball to and make plays, he's not going to be as effective if he's not in that condition that you talked about, where he's in that LeBron condition where he can play 48 minutes. Because when you're the MVP, you got to be ready to strap him on and play 48 minutes. I used to tell
Randy Moss, you can't control your talent. God already gave you that. But what you can control is how good a shape we're going. We're going to be in the best condition athletes on the face of the earth. When we leave training camp, that's what we're going to do. If Harden had that type of mentality, I think we can see different results.
That's why I show up in great shape every single day on the off chance someone says, Jenna, get out there. We need you.
Jenna, we need you to run some 9 routes like Randy.
Hurry up. I can do that thing.
Like, what is that?
Antoine, stick around. I do know what a 9 route is. Don't be laughing at me. I'm getting to break. Coming up to Straight Line. Is Danny Ainge considering dealing Kyrie Irving? We are going to finally hear from Danny Ainge next on First Things First. Quick recap in the East. The Celtics beat the Sixers, and then the Cavs beat the Celtics. And that concludes our recap. Let's talk about the Boston Celtics, Antoine. They got within 1 game of the NBA Finals, and that's without Kyrie Irving, and that's without Gordon Hayward. Celtics GM Danny Ainge, finally making the show, says he can't wait to get them back.
I get a kick out of the fact that everybody, everywhere I go, people don't think that we need Kyrie or need Gordon Hayward. I have a much longer memory and remember how great those guys were and what an effort it took us to get them. And I also remember how great they are and how young they are still. So we need Gordon and Kyrie, absolutely need them. If this playoff run in all the series of the playoffs didn't show that, then I don't know what does. But we were able to win some games and we were able to fight through some tough battles. But, we're much, much better with Kyrie and Gordon.
Obviously, they're a better team if you get those 2 guys back. How bright is the Celtics' future?
It's as bright as any team in any organization in the NBA right now.
I think so.
I think you got to bring everybody back. I like what Danny said. I think you even try to bring back Marcus Smart. You guys talked about it earlier in the show about the number that you would want to pay him. I think you give him his number. You can move him after you give him his number.
Sure.
I think you come back with everybody, and the reason why, you don't know what's going to happen. We saw these injuries in the playoffs coming into play. You never know when a guy's going to get hurt. The year we won a championship, we're deep, man. You got to be able to play 10, 11 guys. And you got to be able to withstand some injuries throughout the season. You got to be able to rest guys. And I think if Boston stays intact, obviously it's going to be some playing time problems. You got to get everybody. That's going to be Brad Stevenson's job to get everybody to buy in to win the championship. But besides trying to really find minutes for guys, I'm coming back with everybody and giving it a shot. And you need everybody to beat LeBron. What if LeBron comes back in the East?
Right. What if LeBron goes to Philly? Here's the thing. I'm not worried about Gordon Hayward injury moving forward. That was a freak occurrence. He doesn't. The Kyrie injury thing's a real thing now. This is a guy that's had multiple knee surgeries, multiple knee issues. So I do understand why people might be a little concerned with that moving forward. But the reason why this team is positioned so well, in my opinion, is if Gordon Hayward is your 3rd best player and Jaylen Brown is your 4th best player, that's a championship caliber team. And that's the position I believe they'll be in. I think Jason Tatum, by midway point in the next year, will be the 2nd best player on the Celtics. If it goes Kyrie, Tatum, Hayward, Brown.
Yeah, I just think Tatum was outstanding. I just think that we have to be careful because when you put 2 superstars, and Gordon Hayward, to me, has proven himself as being a star in this league. Mm-hmm. How good can Tatum be when they're on the same court? Now, we've seen Tatum with lesser players on the court with Jaylen Brown and them. How does he get his shots then? How does he continue to develop? I'm not saying he's going to be a worse player, but I'm not saying he's going to be the 2nd best player on the Celtics. And I don't believe it's that important to put that type of identity on a young player, especially if you're playing on a championship team.
Antoine, tell me where you think on this. Here's the only reason I think it's important to rank it. because that usually is how many shots you're going to get goes according to that. And I want Jason Tatum to be, as part of his development and because of the upside, to be a more featured part of my offense next year than Gordon Hayward, because I want to see him.
But why, though? Why? We haven't seen them together.
That's why I say the training camp and obviously playing the beginning of the season is going to be very important. It's tough. You got to think Jason Tatum is a guy that needs the ball in his hands to score. He's an ISO guy. He's a Paul Pierce. He's a Carmelo Anthony guy where you're going to give it to him, he can go get his own shot.
Yep.
It's a little different when you play with Kyrie Irving because he's not coming off of it as much. So you got to see how this thing play out, and everybody has to be on the page that we're going to win an NBA title. If they're not on the same page that we're going to win an NBA title, it's not going to work. But I have to bring everybody back just to try. You got to bring back Marcus Smart because you need some toughness. They're going to be weak down low because Baines is a free agent.
Yep, low
and I don't know what big guy you're going to bring in. They brought in Greg Monroe. He didn't really give you much.
Right.
So all you got right now down low is Al Horford. So you're going to have to sign somebody in the middle just to have a big body. You never know what matchup you're going to go against.
The important point about Marcus Smart, if you do bring him back, is if the Celtics want to execute a trade at some point, if they do, if they realize we can get better, because they have all these picks coming. They have the Kings pick next year. That could be a top 5 pick. They have a Grizzlies pick coming up. They have a Clippers pick coming up. They don't have the right contracts to execute a trade because they've got 3 guys on a max deal and then everyone else is on a rookie deal. You need those in-between contracts in order to make a major trade work. That's another reason why maybe you do, even if you think you're overpaying, bring back Marcus Smart because that's a tradable contract moving forward.
Antoine, why was the Celtics team so successful this year? I think a lot of people said that they had a lot of uptick. They was like the ceiling was super high. I don't think anyone thought they were going to get as far as they did. But what was about this group of guys? Because we're talking about bringing 2 other guys that are the superstars. There's no option. Those 2 guys are playing next year. But this is the team that got this far.
Well, obviously, you got to put Brad Stevenson. I think put these guys in a scheme in situations where they could be successful. I think, obviously, Jason Tatum turned out to be a great draft pick. Hopefully sometimes you hit a home run with that. He was able to get a lot of playing time early on, which we thought he wouldn't get. Jaylen Brown improved tremendously. When you think about a guy that played in the Summer League, then came out this year and improved his scoring average, he got a lot better. Terry Rozier got better.
Yes.
And then Al Horford was a big-time guy this year. He played above it. I don't look at Al Horford as a scorer, but the way he played in the playoffs, it was incredible. He really carried.
Al Horford's value has never been shown up in the box score.
But this year it did.
In the playoffs it did,
yes.
But in general, he's an excellent defender. He's a team defense-wise. You don't need to run plays for him to get his 15 points. Like, Horford is better than his raw stats would indicate.
2 reasons they got better. Stevens, the coach, he made the adjustments, got them in the right mismatches in the playoffs, and the last 10 games in the playoffs, they shot the ball better. All right, they were a great defensive team, but they shot the ball better, and that allowed them to advance.
And you got to also remember too, in the playoffs, they were good. Don't get me wrong, they were a good home team.
Right.
And usually young players, role players, play very well at home. On the road, you saw they needed Kyrie Irving, they needed Gordon Hayward. Stars went on the road.
Yep.
LeBron James proved that when star players can go in other buildings and win. Golden State proved that. They won 2 games in Houston.
Right.
So you can't, to win in the playoffs, you got to be able to go on other guys' gym and win. They were too young and inexperienced to do that, and they'll get better. That's what Kyrie and Gordon Hayward comes in at.
All right, Antoine, we'll see you a little bit later in the show. Stick around. Much more First Things First right after this. Say what? Nick Young will be making his first trip to the finals after 11 seasons in the NBA. However, he wanted to cut his post-game interview short. Say what?
Oh, it means the world to me. I don't really want to be interviewed right now. I want to go turn up. I really want to go have some fun, but you interrupted my moment. But, yeah, thank y'all for doing this stuff, okay?
Remember, hold on. Okay.
Go have some fun. I don't want to talk to you.
Okay. Remember this date in NBA history, the day Nick Young said he didn't want to be interviewed.
Good one, Ernie. Nick Young's lived a charmed life, man. Like, the reason that he gets to be as famous as he is because he had that run.
You think he's famous?
Let me put it like this. He wouldn't, if his run with the Lakers was with the Kings, he doesn't have a nickname. He doesn't date Iggy Azalea.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people don't, the next thing you know, we say, What's his legacy?
No. There is no Nick Young legacy talk. That's not happening.
Have we officially retired Swaggy P? Because the whole time on the show was Swaggy P, and now we are only Nick Younging it.
Well, Chris reminded me that Nick Young does not want to be called that anymore.
Oh.
And it is, I suppose, the right thing to do to call people what they want to be called. But I see him, and he still acts like a Swaggy P more than he acts like a Nick Young.
What's so swaggy about him?
Well, I mean, he just acts like someone that would have given himself the nickname.
Either he'd be a great-looking guy, got great hair, have a great game,
great tattoos,
play great defense. What's so?
Is Swaggy like the same thing as Swanky?
No.
No.
Okay, cool.
Swaggy is like cool.
Oh, what's Swanky?
It's not. Swanky's like a little bougie. Oh, what are we doing? We're not doing a thesaurus lesson on the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Swaggy is cool.
Okay.
Everything you and Nick are.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for it. It was
You
right
gotta
there.
stop lumping me in, man.
Right there.
You and I have
baby.
a closed-door meeting after the show.
Two
Lumped
cornballs.
it. All right.
Closed-door meeting
Swagging it.
after
Stories
the show.
to start your morning. Talk some football.
I don't know if you've seen my chain.
Coming off a disappointing 2017.
Or your wife.
Russell Wilson has high hopes for the Seahawks in 2018. Wilson says, quote, "I think we're going to have a great offense. I really do." Chris, get it together. You think the Seahawks have a bounce-back season?
Man, they're going to bounce back better than Nick Wright is.
Oh, my God. All right,
this is the thing. That offensive line, Nick mentioned it before, Dwayne Brown coming back, getting all of training camp, all the offseason. He's got to be the backbone of that offensive line that is awful. They spending the limited number of resources on the offensive line. But as long as you have Russell, you have a chance.
That's the thing. Listen, I truly believe Russell Wilson is one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the sport. If you have that guy, and you have a guy I believe to be one of the 5 best coaches in the sport in Pete Carroll, you have a chance to be really good. Now, they need to give him some help. They need to do more than they did last year, and injuries ruined them last year. And they still were alive for the playoffs with a couple weeks.
And I got to give a shout-out to my man Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin made me a believer, all right? These wide receivers are not mediocre.
All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott had an up-and-down year, missing 6 games due to suspension last season. His quarterback, Dak Prescott, said that the emotional roller coaster Zeke went through definitely took a toll on the young running back. CC, you expect Zeke to have a big 2018 season without all the distractions?
Yeah, I expect him to have a tremendous year, and not just because the burden's been lifted, because we have to bring this out that Zeke thinks that he didn't do anything, and he wasn't convicted in the court of law. What he did, and I mean, he just continues to say he wasn't involved in what they say that he was involved in. Talking to his dad, he's looking forward to off-season training, and when you don't have these types of things over your head, it's got to be a tremendous relief. So, yes, with that offensive line repaired, I expect him to have an awesome year.
So here's the thing. I just want to elaborate on one thing you said there. I don't want to say Zeke doesn't think he did anything. He knows if he did something or he didn't. Zeke is saying he did nothing. It's not like he either did it or he didn't. He knows it. The young lady knows it. But the reality is, now that is, from the NFL standpoint, over and done with, I'm not making a value judgment on any of that, but we just now know that's done with. The year coming in from college to pro, that's a tough transition. He then had his own tough transition, either because he was unjustly accused or because he did something horrific last year. Now he has a clean year going into it. Nobody denies his talent. That sets himself up well.
All right, let's move to the NBA, where the Celtics have a lot of decisions to make in the offseason. Most immediately, Marcus Smart. He's a restricted free agent in 2018, but don't expect him to take a pay cut. Smart says, quote, "I'm worth more than $12 to $14 million. Nick, Antoine Walker just weighed in on this. What do you think? Should the Celtics bring back Marcus Smart?
Listen, I think Antoine made a good point that you can bring him back in order to move him. I also, though, think because it's restricted free agency, which is someone else can sign him to an offer sheet and then you can match it, teams can get creative with that. They can sign him to an offer sheet where it's a balloon payment in year one, where it goes up when it would be worse for the Celtics. Teams can try to screw you in order for you not to match it. So it's not quite as simple as a regular unrestricted free agency.
If the Celtics are a championship team, and you look at all the championship teams that we have in the NBA or potential championship teams, their role players, they have to compromise. Now, if he thinks the Celtics are a championship team compared to right now, I need to capitalize on my contract, he's got to decide what's important to him. Because, he probably is worth $12 million. probably somewhere else. But the way the Celtics roster is built, where he's probably the 8th or 9th guy, maybe off the bench now, like, I would be careful if I wanted to stay in Boston as far as my overall demands.
All right, on to the Cavs now. Team owner Dan Gilbert said that he's not focused on LeBron's offseason plans yet. LeBron has a player option for next season worth $35.6 million. He can opt out and become an unrestricted free agent in July. Nick, it's a loaded question, but should LeBron leave the Cavs this offseason?
Absolutely, unequivocally, yes. Like, he clearly, we saw it in that clip when they're getting the Eastern Conference trophy of Dan Gilbert trying to shake his hand and LeBron treating him like a grown man asking for an autograph and just brushing him off. That relationship never got repaired. LeBron, understandably, I believe, never got over that letter fully, and then whatever reparation had been done to the relationship was ruined this offseason when he didn't bring back LeBron's guy, championship-winning GM David Griffin. Like, those things, which LeBron believes, I know this, LeBron believes if David Griffin's there, Kyrie's still there, and a lot of this season goes differently, LeBron has no reason to stay. And now with Houston losing, it's no longer just two teams that LeBron can go to in Philly and Los Angeles. It's Philly, Los Angeles, and Houston. There are some people that believe Miami could be a dark horse contender. As much as I like that storyline of LeBron going Cleveland, Miami, man, I looked at their cap situation. I looked at their players. I don't see how Miami can actively get involved in this. But he now has 3 attractive options, and I think he will pick one of those 3, Philly, L.A., or Houston.
Yeah, it's a very tough decision. A lot of it we'll talk about be based on the players around him. If LeBron is going to stay true to form, LeBron said it's about championships for him. So LeBron is going to surround himself with more talented players that give him in his next 3 to 5 year window. I would try to concentrate on those first 3 years compared to the back end of that and being 5. He needs to be around some guys that can shoot the ball, guys a little more athletic, and some guys that can play some defense, because the Warriors are not going anywhere. All right, so it's easy to look at the locker room of the Cavs and say, I can't continue on this path unless I'm just going to change my goals. If he just wants to start stuffing his stats, he can stay in Cleveland. He ain't going to be able to add no more postseason numbers, but LeBron James...
You don't believe he's going to stay in Cleveland, do you, in your heart of hearts?
It's easy to me. I'm just listening to LeBron, everything that he said. Everything that he said early in his career, which led him to Miami, which led him back to Cleveland. Right now, there's nothing that he was said that would keep him in Cleveland long term.
And he's delivered on his promise, which was to bring them a championship, to bring the city of Cleveland, the state of Ohio, his hometown Akron, a championship. When we were talking about this before the show, though, you brought up something that I think should be mentioned on the air, which is it's no longer just a LeBron and Savannah decision. That's his wife. It's no longer just a LeBron, Savannah, and Rich Paul and Maverick Carter, his agent and business partner. There's now 2 other people who, unlike with his previous 2 decisions, weren't old enough to be involved in it and get some speaking role, and you believe, and that's his 2 sons, right?
Yeah, based on what LeBron has said, and his oldest son being 13. He's got 3 kids. The boys are 13, 11, and then the youngest girl. But their basketball future, LeBron is concerned about. So they're getting ready to move into high school. Now, do I want them to go to high school in Akron, Cleveland? Do I want them to go to high school in Los Angeles? Because LeBron believes that his oldest boy potentially can be an NBA player. And when you have that type of potential, not only your wife, not only your agent and your confidants, but his sons will have, for the first time, those other decisions, they didn't have the say in it. LeBron and the rest of the team came up with the decision. But in this one, the sons will have a say. So I don't believe that the Suns are going to be attached to Cleveland because they've grown up in the United States. They've been in Miami, they've been in Cleveland, and they know he's doing a big renovation to his house in Los Angeles. So they're used to spending summers there anyway. So I believe that their role, whispering in Daddy's ear, you can hear him after the game talking to his sons, how close he is to them. So they will play a role in his decision.
How old are they, 14?
13 and 11, and then he has a daughter who's about to be, I think she's about to be 4. But so she doesn't yet get a say in this, unfortunately. unfortunately.
My 3-year-old has a lot to say. She'd be like, this is what's happening and when. But I'm glad his daughter's much more disciplined. All right, so once again, the Golden State Warriors cannot make vacation plans the first few weeks of June. It's probably such a pain for them anyway, just with prices in the economy. Warriors will be playing in their 4th straight NBA Finals after defeating the Rockets in Game 7. After coasting through the playoffs last year, only losing once, the Warriors were taken to the brink of elimination in Houston. Steph Curry says that making 4 finals in a row is not as easy as the Warriors make it look.
This is, we talked about it leaving this building after Game 5. This was a part of our story that we hadn't been through before. Our backs against the wall, not having home court advantage, needing to win 2 games to keep ourselves alive. And this is a true testament to how hard it is to get to the finals, how hard it is to have a chance to play for a championship. We had to work for it. And, you know, you got to appreciate the moment. Somebody asked, like, 4 years in a row, you know, getting to the finals, do you appreciate it? And yes, because it's really hard. And so all the smiles and you know, embraces you have with your teammates, your coaches, is well deserved.
What do you think of his comments, CC? Do the Rockets needing 7 games do the Warriors rather needing 7 games to beat the Rockets make you think that the Cavs here now have a chance?
Oh, no, the Cavs got no chance.
That's it.
I mean,
this is still the Warriors, the Warriors.
The Cavs got no chance. I tried to think about the last 20 years. Have I ever seen a team this decisive an advantage against an opposition in the NBA final? And I was hard searched in my brain. Nick and I, we went over a couple.
I think the 0-1 Lakers and Iverson Sixers would be the one that jumps out because they had no answer for Shaq. They had no answer for Kobe. Like, that's the one.
Right. So, no, it's nothing. We knew that these were the 2 best teams in basketball. And
in Houston and Golden State,
yeah,
not Cleveland
absolutely.
And Golden State. Yes.
No, we know that LeBron James is clearly the best player in the world. Now it's just a matter, can they win a game? Can they win 2 games? A great series for the Cavs would be to win 2 games. Acceptable would be 4-1, exactly like last year's final.
Yeah, I mean, listen, all year long I have said the Cavs will make the finals. I've never said a word past that.
You never went further, nope.
And had Houston won that game, and if CP3 really was going to be out for another week, then you can start saying, okay, if LeBron, what does LeBron have to do to take? But there is no math to do here. We talked about it earlier in the show. Like, other than LeBron, there isn't a player on the Cavs that cracks their rotation. Like, you can, CC mentioned, well, could Kevin Love take David West's job? Sure, but David West's basically out of the rotation.
Yeah.
Like, could Tristan Thompson take JaVale McGee's job? Sure, but JaVale's out of the rotation. Like, so I do, though, find something that Steph said a little, I don't know, entertaining. When he talked about, listen, we were tested this year. It was hard this year. What is also true, and this happens, injuries are always a part of sports. I get it. But usually, at some point, they even out to a degree. The Warriors' first championship, they did not face a starting point guard the entire playoffs. In the NBA Finals, Kevin Love was already out. The Cavs have played them to overtime in Game 1, and then Kyrie breaks his kneecap, and he's done for the series. The year they won the title with KD, Kawhi has the Spurs up nearly 20 points in Game 1. Zaza injures him. They do not win a game in that series. And then this year, they're down 3-2 to the Rockets. And in the game, they go down 3-2. Chris Paul pulls his hamstring, and they don't win again. Meanwhile, not Steph, not Clay, not Draymond, not KD, have missed a single conference finals or NBA finals game in this run. The biggest injury they've suffered is Iguodala this postseason, who is their 5th most important player. That's just good fortune. That is good luck. That they have not suffered the injuries and their opponents have. You can say Chris Paul's was coming,
just at a different time.
But Kawhi's wasn't coming. The Kyrie's wasn't coming. Kevin Love's happened before they even got to the finals.
Could could you squint a little light a little bit at the end of the tunnel, sort of by saying this is a Warriors team that plays up and down to its competition. This is a Warriors team that maybe came into that Rockets game last night knowing CP3 wasn't there, didn't really turn it on until the third. They seem to do that all the time. And maybe in so doing, LeBron could find a way to eke out a game, 2 games, maybe 3 games.
Yeah, they go up and down on people's head. This is the best team that we've seen in our generation of basketball. All right? This is who they are. Talking about being lucky. They got 3 of the best shooters, and definitely 3 of the best shooters ever on one team. The way they pass the basketball, their ability to be able to get stops, all right? Because there's something about Houston and their whole system and how they get all this analytics and they're going to shoot all these threes. Let me tell you what they did the last 5 games offensively.
Yeah, it didn't.
All right? 85, 95, 98, 86, and 92 points. The greatest offensive team that we've ever seen, all right, the Houston Rockets, that's what they did the last 5 games. So how lucky do the Warriors? Not only are they great shooters, but they do play great defense, and we don't give them credit for that.
Listen, well, I think a lot of people do give them credit. Their first championship, they were the #1 defense in basketball. The year they won 73 games, the #1 defense in basketball. They fell off a little bit once they got KD, but their offense went to another level. This is an amazing basketball team. It's the best third-quarter team I've ever seen. It's the most talented team I've ever seen. But I'd be lying if I didn't say they also have been incredibly fortunate on their path with the injuries to their opponent and the lack of injuries to them. As far as the Cavs do not have the defensive discipline to play 40 minutes. 30 minutes.
Or the athleticism.
Yeah,
I mean, if you individually break them down, it's not about, they're not a good, JR is not a good defender. Kyle Korver is awful. Kevin Love, just as bad. So, no. And the main reason why there's no way to victory or squeaking or squinting or ever going blind is because they can't win on the road, right? They're not going to be able to go to Oracle and be able to win a game. So they automatically, they come back down 2-0.
Listen, you got to play 46 minutes at least of great defense to beat the Warriors. The Cavs haven't played a playoff game where they played more than 22 minutes of great defense. They don't got the horses. I wish they did.
Don't even
show
up, Cleveland. Just stay home. They've already got you beat.
You'll see what LeBron does, but they don't got the horses.
Hey, coming up, someone's calling out Bill Belichick. That's next on First Things First. Line forms on the left for that. Back here on First Things First. Coach Mangini.
Great to see you again, brother. How are you?
A double handshake.
Well,
I have to. Coach offered to open his home up to me if I go to Cleveland for the NBA Finals.
That was very nice.
I couldn't believe it was such an offer.
Keep him there, please.
Got jokes this morning. Okay.
Big takes. Hey, coaches, we're starting to hear from players around the league. The Patriots' way isn't everyone's way. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Tom Brady, it works for him. Gronk sometimes works for him. Former Patriots defensive end Cassius Marsh definitely does not work for him. Now with the 49ers, he had some not-so-pleasant words on his time in New England, saying, they don't have fun there. There's nothing fun about it. There's nothing happy about it. I didn't enjoy any of my time there. It made me, for the first time in my life, think about not playing football because I hated it that much. How bad could it possibly be? Did they not feed you? What was your reaction to Cassius Marsh's comments, Coach? You spent time in New England.
I did. So Cassius Marsh was with 2 teams in 80 days, right? So he was traded by Seattle for a 5th-round draft pick to New England. New England thought that he could do some things, and they asked him to do different things than he had traditionally done. They asked him to cover wide receiver or cover backs out of the backfield. They asked him to drop into coverage.
He was more of a rush specialist, right? A little undersized.
Yeah, and their expectations for him were higher than his own, obviously. And they asked him to do some things that he didn't feel that either he was capable of or that weren't fun for him. And so they moved on from him. And San Francisco claimed him. Now, I couldn't see if anybody else claimed him. I know that Dan Quinn coached him, but I didn't see anybody else claim him. So Seattle moved on from him. New England
San Francisco
moved on
at the time, we should say, was second in the waiver claim.
They would have preference, but I was just trying to see who else was rushing to get him after they moved on from him after 80 days. And so then he gets he gets $109,000 from New England because he was with him for 8 games and he got money from the playoff run. So I wonder if he's going to either give that money to charity or give it back to New England, seeing that that was such an unpleasant experience. Maybe he'd want that money to go to something.
Therapist.
Yeah, something positive to come from it. Look, it's not fun, but they've been to, 8 Super Bowls in the last 16 years? Yeah, it's not fun. Hopefully he'll have more fun wherever his journey takes him after San Francisco.
One of the first times you and I ever did anything together, it was actually a podcast a long time ago back in L.A. And
those were the days.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
So for some reason, this storyline, something like this came up. And I just remember you getting more fiery than I'd ever seen you. And you said, you know what's fun? Winning is fun. That's where the fun is supposed to come from, the winning. The work that leads to winning, not supposed to be fun. But the end of the year, that's where the fun is. And you seemed almost personally or at least professionally bothered by people not understanding that part of it.
It is hard to understand. When you're trying to do something great, when you're trying to do something special, very rarely do you hear great athletes talk about how much fun they had in the journey. It took a lot of hard work. If it was easy, if it was fun, then everybody would be world champions. Everybody would be gold medal winners. Everybody would be elite athletes. It's not. It's hard. And that's what distinguishes great players, great organizations, great teams from the ones that aren't, or the one-hit wonders where they can, win one year and that's it. It is a difficult process.
Coach, I have a question for you, and I don't know the answer. I'm just going to put it out there. Do you think that I would like playing in New England? From what you know about me, you didn't know me before we got into television. We did some work at ESPN. You and I are good friends. Do you think me personally, Chris Carter, would enjoy playing in New England?
I think that you would love the intellectual challenge. I think you would love the discipline. I think you would love the teamwork. I think you would love the opportunities that you had to maximize your natural ability and all the things that you brought to the table. And you saw that with Randy Moss. Would you go into work every single day where you're fired up and excited because it's just going to be such a great day? And so no. Look, there were times where I went into work and it was really hard. But at the end of the year, it was really rewarding.
I didn't know what you were going to answer because one of the things was because I was waived a lot like Marsh, a lot like him. Waived by Buddy Ryan. I got claimed by several teams, but I got claimed by Bill Parcells and the New York Giants. And he called me on the phone. And I was so excited to pack up my car, my life in the shambles, and to go play for the Giants. Had Pepper Johnson, star inside linebacker, playing for him. Had other guys on the team that I knew. We had played against them twice a year for 3 straight years and had beaten them, had a bunch of success. I was looking forward to it. I ended up going off to Minnesota, and the stuff I had to do up there, it wasn't fun. It wasn't, man, there's a lot of stuff involved in football. It's not fun. In Minnesota, man, you go to work, it's dark. You get home from work, it's dark. I didn't win no championships. That wasn't a whole bunch of fun. Every season I ended, losing in the playoffs or losing the regular, man, that wasn't any fun. So for me, I would sign up for it because you're right. If you want to go to grad school, and everyone can't go to grad school. A lot of people after high school, they're done with education. College, definitely give me a BA and that's it. But if you want a higher level of learning, and that's what Randy Moss told me it was like going to grad school.
Getting a PhD in football.
Every single day. And for me, Alabama and Nick Saban, I'll go there. And if you can draft me with New England, I want to go to both those places and let that be my athletic career.
Coach, okay, this is now the 3rd or 4th time we've heard a player who used to either play for the Patriots or played against them or what talk disparagingly about the Patriot way. Just give me an idea, or maybe you two. Specifically, what is so bad about it? Tell me, is it showing up early? Is it the way that Coach talks to you? Is it the food? Tell me what it is that is so horrible.
If I may build on the question, because that is something that listen, every team has hard workouts. Every team asks their guys to be conditioned. Everybody doesn't do the training you did in the offseason, but it's not like the Patriots have a monopoly on guys working hard.
No, but there's something about
right,
it.
Exactly right. So that's what I was curious as well. Is what is different? Because
it's not every player, all right? So guys want the easy way. They might be highly trained, they might be skilled, but there's a lot of guys, they want the easy way out. It's no different in that business than it is in this business. Everyone is not willing to pay the price, to stay focused, to buy into one team concept, one organizational concept. So there's also players leaving Seattle not happy. So we have to make up our mind now.
And there's, when I became the head coach of the Jets, Rodney Harrison said, look, Eric, the best advice I can give you is tell players the truth. They may not like what you say, but they respect you for it, and it gives them a chance to fix the problem. And in New England, there is an honesty level that takes place. And it's often brutally honest, and it can be in front of the whole group, and guys aren't necessarily comfortable with having the mistakes they made being called out. But that's what happens, and so guys have a chance to fix it, and everybody understands that the problems are being addressed, and a trust builds in the room that those mistakes are going to be handled. And there's this myth that discipline is something that you do to someone. It's something that you do for someone. And that's the way New England is. And not everybody is cut out for that.
Is that to you, is that the only thing that we're talking about here? Because it does feel to me like there's like the embarrassment factor of that, being called out in front of your peers. But is it also just the lack of individual freedom? Like, what is it that makes, when we talk about the Patriot way, it's a lot that goes into that. And we talk about, because I think the guys in Philly are working in the weight room just as hard, but they obviously have a different opinion on how fun that job is as opposed to the Pats. Like, is there anything else you can pinpoint that makes the Patriots, whether it's effective or not, less fun? Because that's the word we keep hearing guys use.
Well, look, there's a lot of people that work hard. And then there's hard workers, and those are people that do it every single day. And in New England, you're expected to be a hard worker. You're expected to come in there every single day with the same level of intensity, the same level of focus, the same level of commitment, whether or not you're 14-1 and playing someone who's 1-14, or whether you're in the playoffs. And that some people can't run marathons. Some people, it's okay. You know, they can run a sprint, then they need a nice long break, a massage, the whole thing. It's not how it works there.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate the insight, as always. Coming up, what does losing to the Warriors mean for James Harden? Talk some basketball on the other side. This is First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Former NBA champ Antoine Walker is with us again. Antoine, good to have you back.
Yes.
We are breaking it all down. Back to our top story. Last night's Game 7 between the Warriors and the Rockets. Rockets fell one game shy of making their first finals in 20 years. Two problems for them in this loss, Antoine. Number one, no CP3. And boy, did they need Chris Paul last night. Number two, they forgot how to hit a three-point shot, the thing that got them here. They literally couldn't hit. They missed 27 threes in a row. They went 7 for 44 for the game. Antoine, was this Rockets season, would you consider this Rockets season a success? They took the Warriors to 7 games. Looking back on it now, if you look at the whole scope of how this season went for them.
I think it was a success. When you look at it, you added Chris Paul. We all wondered whether they're going to be able to work together, and they figured it out and won 65 games. They played great all season long, put themselves in the best position possible, and getting home court advantage. I think this is what you want against the Warriors. They did that. James Harden had an MVP season. You got to be happy about that. I think when you're trying to beat the champs, a team like Golden State, it's going to be hard. You're going to need some little luck, some things to go your way. Unfortunately, they got the bad luck when Chris Paul got hurt. They didn't have the luck on their side. So I think it was a success. Obviously, we'll see what happens if they're able to keep this group together. But for the season as a whole, it was a success to me.
If this wasn't a success, even if it ended in disappointment, then the standard is every season that's not a championship was a failure. Then nothing's a success. If this wasn't. If setting the franchise record for wins. If blowing through the first 2 rounds in 5 games each. If getting up 3-2 on Golden State before your second best player and your most important player goes down is not a success. If being 1/2 away from being... I know that's just getting to the NBA Finals, but we all agree, had they won last night, they would have won the championship. Like, this was the de facto NBA championship last night. If that's not a success, then the standard for success is unreachable for 29 teams every single year. The Rockets went into the year saying, we want to turn the season into a best-of-3 against Golden State with having home court, and they did that. and they won the first leg of it. And then CP3 went down, and they also missed 27 threes in a row. You can't account for either one of those things. Like, it wasn't the ultimate success, but yeah, this was a successful
Well,
season.
I don't feel like, I feel if it was the NCAA, you get to the Sweet 16. I believe college football, you get to a bowl game. Your coach gets 8 or 9 wins. But let's just say this. Let's go to 2019. Let's go back to the finals. Again, Houston has home court advantage. It finishes in 7 games. Golden State wins. We're next year. We're 365 days ahead, Nick. You tell me if Houston loses this way next year, is next year considered a success?
No.
Okay, why?
Because you go in steps. And if you don't get further than you had the previous year, then that's not as successful. But if this year they brought in a new player, they set the franchise record for wins, they got the closest they've been to the NBA Finals since Hakeem Olajuwon was there. So if you just duplicate that, like next year the standard's higher. Isn't that fair?
I don't think you get Chris Paul and you have James Harden and you're saying, you know something, I want to advance in the playoffs. We saw it. They had home court advantage. All right? They lost 2 games at home. Now, we can continue to talk about Chris Paul, but if you look at all the NBA championships, and I was looking at NBA on NBA channel, and they look back at some of the great championships, and injuries have always been a part of the NBA and the playoffs. Now, it's just a matter of how significant we're going to put those injuries in there. Now, what they need to do is to make sure, because one of the advantages they had this year was their bench. They didn't utilize their bench. So now, how can they get to the playoffs next year with their bench intact where they have more confidence in their bench? But I don't consider this year a success because if this happens next year, we're going to consider that to be a failure. And I don't believe all teams, Golden State, they didn't make steps before they won it. Cleveland with LeBron, they didn't take steps.
That's totally. Golden State absolutely took steps before they won it.
Well, did they get to the finals?
With Mark Jackson. No, they didn't.
They fired the coach.
Right, absolutely.
They fired the coach and won a championship.
Yeah, but they had steps. They went from being a lottery team drafting Stephen Clay to play.
Okay, let's look at their history and see if it matches what Houston did.
Well,
all right?
I think when you look at it, it's not that many teams that can actually win an NBA championship. The 4 teams that are the final 4 teams were the teams that we thought at the beginning of the season were going to be there. Obviously, Boston, we thought they would need Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. It's the same 4 teams. That's why I have a problem with OKC. When they put those guys together, they never talked about winning the championship. They talked about, hey, how can Paul George fit in with Westbrook and can they be successful? It was never about championship. So I don't necessarily know. I like Houston. The reason why I said it's a success, because that was their goal going into the season. That, hey, we're going to add Chris Paul. We're going to try to win an NBA championship.
You saw that it fit.
Oh, it did
Yes,
fit. I didn't think it would fit, and it fit. They made it work. They put themselves in the best position possible. Like I said, I hate to be hard because obviously you don't know because he didn't play, but you got to put that in consideration. If Chris Paul plays, I believe they beat the Golden State Warriors.
And when you're talking about looking back at the last 20 years, every year there's injuries.
No, I didn't say every year. I said part of the history has been injuries.
Oh, okay, and I would say almost every year there's some injuries. But none of the champions. The ultimate champions, none of them lost their second best player and went on to win the title in the last 20 years. None of them.
Yeah, that's part of doing business. Yeah. You are in sports, all right? We're not dealing with robots and computers. The chance of people getting hurt before big games, it's there.
Of course.
Chris Paul hurting the same hamstring that he's had problems with, I'm not shocked at all.
I'm not shocked by it either.
Didn't I tell you before the playoffs? I said everyone was pretty much healthy. I said, Nick, watch the injuries when the guys get fatigued. It will play a role in who's champion this year.
Of course, but do you disagree? Does anyone disagree that this year, if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt at the end of Game 5 and they lose 6 and 7 the way they did, that feels different. That feels like more of a failure than this one does.
The reason why I'm not giving it to Chris Paul, because I saw them lose a couple games with Chris Paul. I saw game number 1. Where Houston was ready. Chris Paul was in the lineup, and they lost. All right? So I saw them lose with Chris Paul. It wasn't like Chris Paul missed the whole thing, but it's a part. If Steph's out, if anyone else is out, I'm not going to sit there and make an excuse for Golden State either.
But we saw them play 5 games with Chris Paul, and they were 3-2. We saw them play 2 games without him, and they were 0-2.
And a lot of that was because of home court advantage. Game number 5 was in Houston. They got that game.
Okay, and game number 7. Okay, I mean, we're just going to see this one differently. I think.
No, we're not going to see it differently because they won. Golden State wins, and at the end of the day, you got to give credit to the people who won. Or what we can do for the next next 3 months before we go into this, or we can make excuses for Houston.
You got to give Golden State their credit. Obviously, you don't want to take anything away from them.
The shots that they made, Chris Paul would not have affected those shots in the third quarter.
What do you think?
Kevin Durant pulling up from 28.
But what about the shots Houston missed, though?
I don't think Houston has the type of team, Chris, the way you're trying to put. They don't have that type of team. I think you asking a guy, Clint Capella played well, but look at Trevor Ariza, a guy who's been in the league. He goes 0 for 12. He doesn't play very well. He doesn't use his bench, Mike D'Antoni. You got to put a little onus on him, too.
Yeah, what about the 2 leads they had? Chris Paul on the bench. Game 6, they're up double digits at halftime. All right, in Oakland. Game 7, everything on the line.
But that's what they got him for.
They're up 11.
Yeah.
All right, so no one was talking about Chris Paul at halftime, but the thing, Jenna, they don't give out no trophies at halftime. They needed 12 more minutes of the Houston to play some basketball without Chris Paul, and they collapsed. Now, you can blame it on Chris Paul, or you can blame it on those guys on the court. Because the 15 points that they scored, man, we can make up all kind of excuses. Those players on the court didn't get it done. The adjustment that Golden State made at halftime, they affected the Rockets, and you could see it played out.
Antoine, real quickly before we go to break, if you think this team was a success and did have a successful year, how much needs to be changed next year to be able to take it to the next step?
Well, they got a lot of question marks. I mean, Trevor Ariza is your starting 3-man. He goes 0 for 12. He's 32 years old. He'll be 33 in June. Chris Paul is 33 years old. How much money do you want to pay him? Do you believe that me and Nick are defending him, but is this the guy you think can get you over that hump? And can he stay healthy? He's had injury problems, so how much you want to invest in him? Gerald Green is a guy they picked up that was sitting at home and played a big part of their team.
And are you going to max out Capella?
And
they got a lot of questions.
They got a lot of question marks on their team, so it'd be interesting to see what happens.